The real stories behind famous myths. Level B. 1. Intermediate. Myths are some of the oldest stories in the world. They were created long before books, movies, or the internet. People told them around fires, during celebrations, and in temples. Myths help people understand the world, explain natural events, and teach lessons about life. Today, many myths are still popular, but not everyone knows where they truly come from. Behind every famous myth, there is a real story, sometimes historical, sometimes symbolic, and sometimes surprising. In this text, we will explore some well-known myths and discover the truth behind them. 1. What is a myth? A myth is a traditional story that tries to explain something: the creation of the world, the reasons for natural disasters, or the behavior of gods and heroes. Many cultures created myths to answer questions they could not explain with science. For example, why does the sun rise every day? Why does it rain? Why do people dream? Myths often include gods, magical creatures, and heroes with special powers. But even though these stories are not always literally true, they usually have deeper meanings. They reflect the fears, hopes, and beliefs of the people who told them. 2. Myth versus reality. It is important to understand that myths are not just false stories. They often contain real elements: historical events, real places, symbolic messages, or strong cultural values. Many myths were inspired by something people really saw or experienced, but over time, details changed as stories were retold again and again. Some myths grew bigger and more dramatic with each generation. Others changed to match new beliefs or different cultures. By studying the origins of myths, we can learn about ancient civilizations and understand how people viewed the world thousands of years ago. 3. The myth of Atlantis. One of the most famous myths in history is the story of Atlantis, a powerful and advanced island that disappeared into the ocean. According to the Greek philosopher Plato, Atlantis was a wealthy kingdom with impressive buildings and technology. But because its people became greedy and corrupt, the gods punished them. The entire island sank into the sea. Many people today imagine Atlantis as a futuristic underwater city full of secrets. There are movies, books, and documentaries about it. But what is the truth? The real story. Most historians believe that Atlantis was not a real place, but a philosophical idea. Plato used the story to teach about pride, morality, and the dangers of power. However, some experts think the Atlantis myth may be connected to a real disaster: the eruption of the volcano on the Greek island of Santorini around 1600 BCE. The explosion destroyed a large part of the island and caused tsunamis. This event could have inspired the legend of a lost civilization swallowed by the sea. 4. The myth of the Minotaur. In Greek mythology, the Minotaur was a half-man, half-bull monster that lived in a huge maze called the Labyrinth. The king of Crete, Minos, trapped the creature there and forced Athens to send young people as sacrifices. The hero Theseus eventually killed the Minotaur and escaped with the help of Ariadne, who gave him a ball of thread to find his way out. This myth is exciting and dramatic. But where did it come from? The real story. The civilization of ancient Crete, called the Minoans, worshipped bulls and used bull images in their art. Archaeologists found paintings showing people jumping over bulls in special festivals. The labyrinth may have been inspired by the large, complex palace in Knossos, which has hundreds of rooms and long corridors. To visitors, it may have looked like a confusing maze. Over time, Real cultural practices turned into a myth of a monster hidden in a grand labyrinth. 5. The myth of the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse is one of the most iconic stories from ancient Greece. According to the myth, the Greeks built a giant wooden horse and hid soldiers inside it. They pretended the horse was a gift and left it outside the city of Troy. When the Trojans brought the horse into their city, the soldiers came out at night, opened the gates, and allowed the Greek army to enter. Troy was destroyed. But did this really happen? The real story. The city of Troy did exist, and evidence shows it was destroyed around 1200 BCE. However, historians are not sure about the wooden horse. It may have been a symbol, not an actual object. Some scholars believe the horse could represent a siege weapon, an earthquake, because horses were sacred to the god Poseidon, or simply a metaphor for trickery used in war. The real event was likely a clever military strategy, transformed into a dramatic story with a wooden horse. 6. The myth of King Midas. The story of King Midas tells of a man who wished for everything he touched to turn to gold. At first, this power seemed wonderful, but soon he realized it was a curse. He could not eat, drink, or hug his daughter without turning her into gold. In the end, he begged the gods to take the power away. This myth teaches a clear lesson about greed, but is it based on real events? The real story. There was a real king named Midas who ruled in ancient Phrygia, in what is now Turkey. Archaeologists have found his tomb and many treasures. The legend likely grew from the fact that his kingdom was wealthy and famous for gold. Over time, the story became a moral tale about the danger of wanting too much. 7. The myth of vampires. Vampires appear in many cultures, mysterious creatures who drink blood and avoid sunlight. The most famous vampire is Count Dracula, inspired by the real historical figure Vlad the Impaler, a 15th-century ruler known for his brutal punishments. But the idea of vampires existed long before Dracula. The real story. Before people understood diseases, they tried to explain strange events with myths. In some villages, when several people became sick, locals believed the dead were rising and draining the living. Natural processes like decomposition also frightened people. Bodies sometimes moved due to gas pressure, and blood could appear near the mouth. Over time, fear and misunderstanding created the vampire myth. Later, writers added romantic and supernatural elements, shaping the vampire image we know today. 8. The myth of werewolves. The werewolf legend, humans turning into wolves, appears in European folklore. Stories describe people transforming under a full moon or being cursed by magic. The real story. Some historians think werewolf myths came from real medical conditions. One condition, hypertrichosis, causes excessive hair growth. Another, rabies, can cause aggressive behavior, fear of water, and biting. These symptoms may have frightened ancient communities, leading to stories of people becoming animals. Wolves were also common in Europe and often attacked livestock. Villagers created stories to explain frightening sounds or mysterious animal behavior. 9. The myth of dragons. Dragons exist in almost every culture, from Chinese legends to European fairy tales, but their appearance and meaning are very different. Chinese dragons are wise and bring good luck, while European dragons are usually dangerous monsters that heroes must fight. So why do so many cultures imagine giant, serpent-like creatures? The real story. One explanation is fossils. Long before people knew about dinosaurs, they found huge bones in the ground and tried to explain them. A giant skull or long vertebrae could easily inspire the idea of a dragon. Another explanation is that early humans feared snakes and large reptiles, so stories about giant versions of these animals became popular. 10. The myth of mermaids. Mermaids are magical creatures with the upper body of a woman and the tail of a fish. For centuries, sailors told stories of seeing beautiful mermaids in the ocean. Some said they sang songs, others said they brought storms or danger. But what did sailors really see? The real story. Many historians believe that early sailors mistook sea animals for mermaids, especially manatees and dugongs. These animals have long tails and sometimes rise out of the water in a way that could look human from far away. After months at sea, tired sailors with poor visibility could easily imagine mermaids instead of real animals. Over time, these sightings grew into magical legends. 11. The myth of the phoenix. The phoenix is a legendary bird that burns itself to ashes and then rises again, young and alive. It symbolizes rebirth, hope, and immortality. This myth appears in ancient Egypt, Greece, China, and the Middle East. The real story. The phoenix myth may be connected to the way some birds behave. For example, certain birds clean their feathers by sitting close to smoke or fire, which might have inspired the idea of a bird reborn from flames. Another theory says the myth symbolizes the sun rising every day after disappearing at night. The phoenix became a poetic way to express renewal and the cycles of nature. 12. The myth of giants. Stories of giants appear in mythology worldwide, from the Greek Titans to Norse frost giants and biblical Goliath. Many cultures believe that enormous beings once lived on Earth. The real story. Giant myths may come from ancient fossils. Before people knew about dinosaurs and extinct mammals, they found huge bones that seemed too large for normal humans or animals. They imagined giants to explain these discoveries. Some giants may also represent natural forces, like mountains or storms, which seemed powerful and mysterious to ancient people. 13. The myth of the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster, often called Nessie, is a famous creature said to live in a deep lake in Scotland. People describe Nessie as a long-necked water animal, similar to a dinosaur. There have been many reports, photos, and stories, but no clear proof. The real story. Scientists believe most sightings are mistakes. Waves, floating logs, birds, or swimming deer can look strange from a distance. Some photos were proven to be hoaxes. The idea of Nessie became popular in the 1930 seconds when newspapers began printing dramatic stories to attract readers. The legend continues because people love mysteries, but no scientific evidence confirms such a creature exists. 14. The myth of ghosts. Ghost stories exist everywhere. People have always told tales of spirits returning to visit the living, especially in places connected to death or strong emotions. The real story. Some ghost legends may come from imagination, fear, or misunderstanding. Before electricity, houses were dark and full of strange noises. Wind blowing through old buildings, shadows moving across walls, or temperature changes could easily scare people. Sleep paralysis when a person wakes up but cannot move also caused many ghost stories. People felt a presence in the room and believed it was a spirit. Even today, ghost stories continue to fascinate people. because they explore the mystery of life and death. 15. The myth of zombies. Today, zombies are famous thanks to movies and games. They are usually shown as dead people who return to life and attack the living. But the original myth comes from Haiti, influenced by West African beliefs. The real story: in traditional Haitian culture, a zombie was not a monster but a person controlled by magic. Some scholars believe that real zombie cases were connected to drugs or poisons that caused deep sleep, slow movement, and confusion. When the person woke up, they looked like they had returned from the dead. Over time, the myth changed into the modern image of zombies seen in fiction. 16. The myth of fairy folk. Fairies, elves, and tiny magical creatures appear in many European stories. They live in forests, steal food, help or trick humans, and cast spells. Fairies often represent nature and mystery. The real story. Some historians believe fairies began as stories about real people, perhaps small or isolated groups living separately from others. Strange lights in the forest, glowing insects, or unknown sounds may also have inspired fairy myths. In Ireland and Scotland, fairy stories helped explain mysterious places, unusual hills, and ancient stone circles built by unknown ancestors. 17. The myth of the Kraken. The Kraken is a giant sea monster from Scandinavian legends. Sailors described it as a creature so large it could pull entire ships underwater. The real story. The Kraken myth was probably inspired by giant squids. Real giant squids can reach more than 13 meters, 40 feet in length, and have eyes the size of dinner plates. Before scientists knew they existed, sailors who saw parts of dead squids or tentacles rising from the water imagined enormous monsters. Storms, whirlpools, and ocean waves may also have contributed to the legend. 18. The myth of Medusa. Medusa is one of the most famous figures in Greek mythology, a woman with snakes for hair who could turn people to stone with her gaze. She was eventually defeated by the hero Perseus. The real story. Medusa's story may symbolize fear of the unknown or the dangers women faced in ancient times. Some scholars believe she represents the concept of dangerous beauty or the fear of female power. Her snake hair might symbolize natural forces or real dangers in the ancient world, like venomous animals. 19. The myth of the chupacabra. In Latin American folklore, the chupacabra is a strange creature that attacks livestock and sucks their blood. It became popular in the 1,990 seconds after farmers reported finding dead animals with mysterious wounds. The real story. Most scientists believe the chupacabra sightings were caused by sick or injured animals, especially coyotes, suffering from a skin disease that makes them lose fur. These animals look thin, weak, and strange, especially at night. The wounds on livestock are usually caused by normal predators. Media attention helped turn these events into a scary myth. 20. Why myths matter today. Even though we live in a modern, scientific world, myths are still important. They help us understand ancient societies, and they reveal what people used to fear, admire, or dream about. Myths connect us to our ancestors and remind us how human imagination has shaped culture. Myths also teach lessons. They warn us about danger, encourage us to be brave, or explain the consequences of greed and pride. Many myths are still used in books, movies, and games, showing that these stories continue to inspire creativity. Most importantly, myths remind us that humans have always searched for meaning. Even when they didn't have scientific answers, they created stories to make sense of the world. And today, these stories still help us appreciate the richness of human culture and history.